is your life pointless? So, so the way that we think is we think in opposites. We think that we know this floor is wood because it's not cement. We know that I am white because I'm not brown, although I'm pink actually, if we were really honest. White people are pink, they're not white. It's just, I don't know, some people didn't want to be called pink, so we got called white. Or I suppose I'm not pink, I'm like a yellowy, pinky colour. Anyway, besides the point. So this bottle is big compared to another bottle that's smaller. So we know that it's big in comparison. So our language works on comparison. It's really amazing the way our language works. The way that we deduct the meaning of what people are saying is by comparing it to lots of other things. So it's like our brain quickly works and it's like, oh, it doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that, but it means that. And we have all these sayings, like in English, we have something called head over heels, like head over heels in love. It means like you're doing somersaults, like, or that you're tripping over because you're so in love, like your head is over your heels. And like head over heels, and we know what a head is and we know what heels are because they're not the boob, they're not the arm, they're not the hand. So our brain is working super quick to deduct meaning from what we're saying. So our whole spoken reality and imagined reality isn't actually the way it is. It's the way that we've learned to speak and the way that we've learned to communicate about the way we think it is. So it's not fact. There is no fact in the way that we speak. We can never actually depict something. We can point to it. So we can say window because it's not the wall, it's not the floor, it's not the grass. So we know what a window is by deducting and also by pointing at the actual object. So we also have this idea that we formulated amongst ourselves that life should have meaning, or that life should have a point. Prior to us thinking about if life should have a meaning or life should have a point, life still was, and it still was as it was, and that was irrelevant. But then we began to think of that as humans. Okay, so what's the point and the meaning to my life? So this can be helpful to understand direction and for the human to navigate through different options that it has. So it can be helpful to say, my point is to help my kids grow and to thrive and to succeed, or my point is to complete, or my meaning is to complete for the day my tasks that I have on my lists. But it ultimately doesn't refer to a bigger picture. So it doesn't refer to something where it's like your overall life should mean something. So you live, you get a job, you have kids, you buy a house, you work, and then you retire, and then you have some retirement years, and then you die. And a lot of us are afraid that if we do that, that we won't have found meaning in our life, or we won't have found purpose to our life. And this makes us afraid, this idea of doing it all, living life and not having found purpose. But what do you imagine that the purpose could be to our lives? So maybe the purpose is you do something great, so you do something better than everyone else, and that seems like a reasonable purpose, to be better than everyone else. So do something great, like create or invent something really good, or get a Nobel Peace Prize. So to stand out from the crowd, that may be to some people what meaning or purpose is. Maybe your meaning or your purpose is to be happy for your whole entire life. Maybe the meaning and purpose to your life is to find out what the meaning and purpose of life is. So you can see how people make up these ideas, or maybe your meaning or purpose, this is a big one, is to save and help other people, to do something very altruistic. So we have all these ideas that we formulate in our brain, and this means that if we don't achieve that, if we don't achieve some form of specialness, then our life was purposeless and there was no meaning to our life. And if we look at percentages of how many humans there are, it's going to most probably be, percentage-wise, that the majority of humans don't do something that stands out. Because if something stands out, then it means like 1 in a million can do it, or 1 in 10 million can do it, or 1 in a billion can do it. So in order to stand out and be successful and do something really special, like win the Nobel Peace Prize or invent something that no one else has thought about, or write a book or write your memoir, in order to do that, it's more than likely going to be few and far between people that have that. So that means that most people in life, if that's what the meaning of life is, and that's what the purpose of life is, most people are never going to attain that. So it means that only a very select few that are born into this life with high intelligence or high creative skills are going to actually achieve that. And all the others are going to die with a purposeless, pointless life. So for that one, for the first one that we suggested of what could be meaning or could be purpose, then we have to put this aside because we realize actually it's really exclusive, because if we've got a certain amount of humans and all of them want to find purpose and meaning to their life, then how can all of them be super successful? So that can't happen. So we just put that aside for a moment. And then we look at the next one that I suggested, which is, what was the next one I suggested? Was it doing something good? We have to go back and watch that, I've forgotten them. So doing something good and altruistic. So in order for you to do something good and altruistic, you first need to find people that are less fortunate than you and that need help. So first of all, it's dependent on people needing help or animals needing help, which I'm sure you'll always find in this world, but just notice that. So if everybody was safe and if everyone was cared for, then what would happen to your purpose? So again, it's not a dependable one. And if everybody decided that they wanted to be the helpful one and altruistic, there'd be nobody left to help. So again, we just put that one aside. So then we go to the meaning of purpose of life. Okay, so you set yourself up big that you want to find out what the meaning and purpose of life is. But how can life inherently have something that humans have made up? So humans have made up this concept of meaning and purpose, and then they've personified it onto life, that life should have some sort of meaning and purpose. So why is it that you think that you can fit the whole entire universe and the making and the mystery and the wonder of all of this into our psychological capabilities? So I think that is going to also not happen. I think all of them can happen few and far between. No, not the last one, but all of them can happen. The first two can happen, but they're all dependent on other things being in play. So it means that majority of people, if we think of all the humans, aren't going to be fulfilled from those categories. So it's only going to be special people that are fulfilled from those categories. So basically, what I'm trying to point to here is the illusory construction that life should have a meaning and life should have a purpose. In a way, you could see it as a very arrogant idea that humans try to personify everything, to make everything human or personal. Maybe personify is not the right word, but that humans try to implement their thinking system onto a structure that was here way before humans were created, and the humans formed from that structure, and then we look at it and we're like, what's the meaning or purpose of this? I think it's a good question because it sends people on the spiritual path, but I think if you set that goal up for yourself on the spiritual path, you'll fail, or you'll have a tendency to become depressed. I noticed that for people that are depressed, these concepts are very important. So these concepts, which are human invented, so human invention, are very important to people that suffer with depression. So if you suffer with depression, a lot of the feeling is, what's the point of getting out of bed, or what's the purpose of getting out of bed? As if that prior to having depression, you got out of the bed and you had purpose and you had meaning. You had the feeling of purpose and meaning because you felt healthy and strong, and so therefore the activities that you were doing felt fulfilling to an extent. And so when you lose that capability, then you begin to question what is the purpose and meaning to life. I think that when you begin to ask these questions, it can be good because it sends you onto the spiritual path, but you have to exercise your creative thinking by realizing that language is limited, and that putting your ideals or humans' ideals onto life, which is way much bigger than humanity, will be an impossibility. And predominantly the idea arises because you feel dissatisfied. So you feel a sense of dissatisfaction. So when you wake up in the morning, you don't feel eager to get up or to do things, you feel dissatisfied. So then you try to find a purpose or meaning to encourage you, to give you energy to do things. But actually, I would suggest that the more that you see life as absolutely meaningless and without point, the more that you'll enjoy the simplicity of simply being. That seeing that these ideas are irrelevant to find meaning in why you drink your drink, or why you're speaking to your friend, or why you're doing the garden, to find meaning in that concept, like that I want to become a great gardener, actually removes you from what you're doing and takes away the beauty of what you're doing. Doing it just for the sake of living, just for the sake of being here, is its beauty. To try to intellectualize it and put reason on it destroys it. You can have point, so doing things like goals, like you're trying to make your garden look more prettier, but I mean, like you make your garden look pretty, and I mean, that's nice to do in the moment, but in the long run, what's the point of it? Because there is no point to make your garden look pretty, because eventually other plants will take over, or you'll lose control, or there'll be a drought. But the point is just in the pure intimacy of doing something. Like we do things, we're creative, just the creativity of doing it. And that's the purpose of doing things. And that's the healthy mindset, to not look at things too removed from what's actually happening. So to have the purpose, like I want to create the best garden ever so I can compete in a garden show and I can be known for how brilliant my garden is, and other people will see that I'm a superior gardener. All of that's irrelevant. Like that's going to distract from the actual intimacy of gardening. Like it's nice to have a pretty garden. Like I would like to do more gardening. I don't currently have enough time because there's other things around the house that I need to do prior to that. So what I'm trying to suggest to you is that is the point to your life. There's absolutely no point. We made up the idea of point. We made up the idea of meaning, and then we're trying to live up to impossible standards, and in the end you'll be disappointed because eventually you'll realize there's absolutely no point or meaning to any of this. If you still need some form of point, you could say that consciousness is recognizing itself. Like on the human level, in terms of evolution, it seems that consciousness is becoming like a conscious being, like it knows a being that knows itself. And that most probably is going to change humanity and make it nicer and happier and freer and more peaceful. So it's creating an animal that knows who it is and lives in harmony with that realization. dogs and bees and birds and cats are who they are, but they don't know who they are. So they simply are as they are. They're not removed from who they are, so they're free, but they don't know who they are. Whereas because humans leave home, when they go back to home, they know who they are. There's a knowing of it, which is really amazing. So there is maybe in humans like some sort of evolutionary progress that's happening, but at the same time, what is even the point of that? It's absolutely meaningless. Like if we have this peaceful society in the future on the absolute, like if you look out further and you look at galaxies and you look at solar systems, it's absolutely pointless that this small amount of animals live in relative harmony. Or if you look at it from consciousness perspective, it's something nice that we can talk about and it's something we can strive for in humanity, but it's really also pointless to this moment right now. It means nothing right now, this utopia in the future. What matters now is what's happening now. It's something fun that we can talk about or exciting or a nice goal, but at the end of the day, there is no point that you're going to arrive at where you finish something. Everything is constantly moving and expanding and changing and looping in circles as well. And this ideal of arriving at a point where you find meaning or you find point is ridiculous. It's an absurd idea. No other animal is walking around stuck in this contemplation. The reason that it begins to arise is because of dissatisfaction, because of seeking. And the reason that seeking arises is because you're removed from who you are. It's got nothing to do with whether you have point or you have meaning. When you are who you are, the human will feel inspired to create, because that's the natural movement of the human, is to be creative. So if you keep spinning in this dilemma about purpose and meaning and point, know that it's only coming up because of dissatisfaction which occurs now. This moment is all you ever have. Right now is all there ever is. This free, expansive, juicy, wonderful moment is all there is. This is it. Right here, the feeling of the bum on the seat, the hands on the table, the colours. This is enough.